All right. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else? And in today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about what I am seeing from Intrepid's developers as it pertains to combat in Ashes of Creation. Now, I want to provide a couple caveats here. We are way too early for this type of a discussion. It's just something I wanted to talk about because I'm excited about what I've seen so far. And so there's a lot of things missing. But one of the biggest questions that I had about Ashes of Creation has so far seemingly been answered. And I wanted to talk to you guys about that and why I'm excited to see so many more of the archetypes come to life as we get more and more showcases down the road. So, with that being said, let's dive into it. Now, a lot of you guys know I started covering Ashes of Creation back in 2022. I've been following this game since 2020, and yeah, we are very, very early into the process. We've only seen 5 archetypes about halfway through. We still have 3 more archetypes to go. We have all the different gear. We have augments to discuss. There's so many other things to discuss. But one of the biggest concerns that I have always had when I play an MMORPG is whether archetypes have enough tools in their toolkit to counter other archetypes and classes. My point is, let's imagine you're working on your car, right? Like you need to change a tire, you ran over a piece of glass, you got a flat tire. If you don't have a proper wrench in order to take the wheels off, you're fucked. Right? And the same thing happens when you're playing a class. If the class doesn't have the proper tools or abilities to deal with another class, they're fucked. And there's nothing functionally fun about that. It's not fun going into a fight knowing that there's literally nothing that you can do. You want the classes to be functional. You still have to have the skill to be able to use it. You still need to be able to utilize those tools in order to have a successful outcome, but at least you have a chance. I'm not saying all of us are going to win. Not all of us are the best players that ever existed in a game before, but if we don't have tools, we never have a chance to even try. And so one of my concerns from my experiences playing other MMORPGs in the past is the range to melee based interactions. I've seen it from both points of view. I've seen melee being extremely dominant in a meta. I've seen ranged be extremely dominant in a meta. And I'm not talking about damage. Obviously, damage can be balanced later. So what I'm talking about is I've seen it with melee players where every single skill and ability that they have has a root, a slow, or a snare to where that if you eventually hit the opposing player, they can't move anymore. And so it's almost like you're on a beach or you're running in quicksand. All of a sudden, your fast mobile range player isn't fast and mobile anymore. They're just stuck in the ground getting pummeled to death. And so that type of meta with that much dominating passive effects lends credence to more and more players playing melee. And they want to play melee because, hey, if I'm going to be slogging around the mud, I might as well be tanky and bulky and be able to hit people in front of my face because none of us are freaking moving anyway, right? That's not fun. That's not a fun type of enjoyable play style to experience. I've also seen it happen where ranged is extremely powerful. The melee players don't have enough ability to close the distance. Either the ranged player is too fast or they have too much defensive capabilities, whether it's invisibility, their dodge is just incredible, or the offensive player just doesn't have enough tools in their toolkit to close the distance. Sure, they might have a dodge or they might have a gap closer or two, but range they're so much faster. They have so many more defensive capabilities that it just kind of renders it obsolete. As a melee player, you feel like it's futile fighting range. You're just chasing them, hoping they mess up. And if a ranged player plays well, you just don't have enough tools in your toolkit to counteract that. And so that's what I've experienced. From my perspective, I like to see it's almost like a water dance, right? Where one class or archetype activates an ability, and the other class, if they play it well, they have defensive capabilities. And so it just kind of bounces back and forth. When you're looking at it from the outside, it looks fun to play as either the ranger or the fighter, and whoever plays their class better ends up winning. Now, I do want to be clear. I know some people are going to come in here and say, hey, like this is a rock, paper, scissors game. Obviously, one of these classes is going to have a hard counter to the other. I understand that, but you do want to see ranged and melee interactions. There's more than one range class. There's more than one melee class. And so it will be good to see how these different classes are going to interact with each other. And so in December, we saw the Ranger showcase, and I'm not going to dive into it too much, but we got to see a bunch of fun defensive abilities. We saw a backflip, we saw an arrow barrage where you can jump over your opponent. We also heard that the Ranger is the second fastest archetype, so if you are a Ranger, you can cover lots and lots of range, which is fantastic. That fits right into what I believe a Ranger should be. And then you also have active camouflage, and active camouflage is no joke. We saw in the January showcase, so during the first PvP live stream, that the minute a Ranger activates camouflage and they get 10 to 15 meters away, it might as well be functional invisibility at that point. So yes, it's camouflage at closer range. At farther ranges, you just can't see them. And so I think that is a very cool defensive mechanic as well. It allows the Ranger to operate at further distances if they so choose to use a bow, fire at opponents from further ranges, and they basically get to do damage from that. And if they play well, they have defensive capabilities to keep them at that distance. The fighter we saw had 3 gap closers. And so I saw some discussion on the forums, and people were worried about Ranger only having 2 evade abilities, but fighter having 3 gap closers. And I think it makes sense when you think about how a ranged and melee interaction typically goes. If you run across each other on a battlefield, range is going to be able to fire first. They get to do first damage. So if you shoot somebody in the back, or if you shoot a fighter in the back, they're going to turn around and look at you, and then you have the ability to either activate camouflage or operate at a further distance away. And so if you imagine that scenario, you fire at the fighter, they gap close to you, you evade, they gap close again, you evade, and they gap close again. So it makes sense that they have one more gap closer to kind of keep the distance, close the distance. As the Ranger, you still have the capabilities of using camouflage, and also if you're operating at a far enough distance, you also have the capabilities of using camouflage and then using your movement speed. And so it makes a lot of sense. I think this makes a lot of sense for these sorts of interactions. I was really looking forward to seeing how the fighter was going to be able to close the distance. I like to play every class, guys. I play every class in every game that I play. I like to play range. I like to play melee. I like when I have the choice to choose both. Personally, the more variety that exists in a game, the more diverse builds that are out there, the more enjoyment I can get out of the game, the more years I can have playing the game. And so sincerely, I want ranged and melee to be able to shine through here. I want to see them both succeed, because then that means I get to play years worth of melee and years worth of ranged and get to enjoy both. And so, or months, or however long, it goes. But that's what I want to see. When I'm out there PvPing with you guys, I want to see everybody, I want to see it at least close enough to where more and more players are choosing what their favorite classes are, instead of choosing what the best class is. And so that's what I like to see. I like to see the different tools in the toolkit starting to get fleshed out. And I think we're seeing that here. I think we're seeing a very good ranged and melee interaction. I think we're seeing the base kit of really fun combat. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it. Obviously, really looking forward to Alpha 2 and testing this and providing more feedback as we get into it. But I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this as well. Is it too much for range? Is it too much for melee? Let me know your bias as well. Like, I'm not saying you're right or wrong, because none of us are right or wrong until we actually get in and test this. But obviously, if you're a ranged player, it'd be good to know if you think ranged is underperforming, and vice versa. So good to see you guys again. I'll be posting more videos. Hope to catch you on the next one. Take it easy. Have a good one.